I'm of both because yours is rewarding the best team, which ultimately is how things should be.
It's how it should be. Not Black Hat over here wants chaos.
Yes, yes,
Right.
always.
I'm a chaos merchant.
Yes, you are absolutely a chaos merchant.
That is, by the way, I think you just came up with your own nickname, the Merchant of Chaos.
Yes.
If we put like a handlebar mustache on him, he literally would be like the the villain in the old Dudley Do-Right cartoon.
We could do a top hat.
Right, exactly.
Just
like a little, just like that's you. You are the human embodiment of me.
I do love mayhem. I do love mayhem.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
All right, welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. I am Jay Croucher. I'm the Merchant of Chaos. I also got a haircut. Thanks for noticing, Matthew Berry. Lawrence Jackson, that's fine. It's 5 p.m. somewhere. 12 p.m. on Peacock, Matthew Berry.
On a Tuesday, and I couldn't come up with it in the moment. I like that you've embraced the Merchant of Chaos. We need to get you a black hat, because in the old Indian cowboy movies, the bad guy always wore a black hat.
Sure.
So that's what you are. You are the black hat. You are the Merchant of Chaos. What you are is you saw the clip there at the top of the show. I couldn't come up with a name in the moment because back when I was a kid, I used to watch all those Dudley Do-Right, the Jay Wright cartoons, Mr. Peabody, Mr. Peabody and Sherman, they were right there. So anyway, the villain in all those cartoons was Snidely Whiplash. And that is Snidely Whiplash.
That does look like me.
That is you, a little bit. Throw a black hat on you, give you a handlebar mustache, and tell me that's not Jay Croucher, Lawrence Jackson.
He got to get the hat for tomorrow, man, and the rest of the week, man. You got to represent.
You. Look how evil he looks. Look how much glee he takes in being evil. That's the point. It's the smile. It literally is, honestly, seriously.
If we could
put in just do a little handlebar mustache there.
Shocking content. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not great at growing mustaches, but outside of that, yes.
Well, once you hit puberty, you're going to be able to.
Snidely Whiplash. When did you grow up, Matthew? What is this, like 1997? Sounds characters wrong.
Fairly close. I believe the Jay Wright cartoons are from the 50s, but they're truly brilliant. I believe it or not. They're actually George of the Jungle is probably the most famous. You guys know.
Yeah.
You guys have all heard of George of the Jungle, right?
Sure.
Anyway, so he was George of the Jungle. He was Dudley Do-Right, Mr. Peabody and Sherman. There's some others that I'm forgetting as well, just in the moment here. But anyway,
for the
we
love
digress.
of God, let's get to Rotoworld headlines.
I'm going to look that up. While you do that, I'm looking up some other Jay Wright cartoons. Highly recommended on YouTube and stuff like that. They're just fun.
All right.
They're just fun, the Jay Wright cartoons.
From the darkness of Snidely Whiplash, let's go to some light, which is Damar Hamlin, who's been released from hospital in Cincinnati. He's back in Buffalo. He's said that he's grateful for the awesome care received at UCMC. Happy to be back in Buffalo. The docs and nurses at Buffalo General have already made me feel at home. Just an incredible story. Obviously, just amazing to see him live tweeting through the Bills game. I think that when we think about the 2022 NFL season, I think the first memory everyone's going to have is that Nyheim Hines running back, the opening kickoff. Just an incredible story all around. And hoping that Damar continues making his recovery. Let's talk about the Arizona Cardinals, who just fired Kliff Kingsbury. Matthew?
Before we get there.
Yeah. Snidely Whiplash.
Jay Wright is the head coach, or the former head coach of the Villanova Wildcats.
Yeah.
Jay Ward is what I was thinking of. I was trying Jay Ward. I don't know why.
Jay Wright.
Whatever. It's early on a Tuesday. I'm used to be drunk.
It's midday. It's literally midday.
What do you want? What do you want from me? I played for TCU last night. I still have my bell rung. What do you want from me?
Close. Who
was you? Usually on the defense?
Yeah, pretty much. You saw the back of me running after guys all night long. What a beatdown that was. All right, so Jay Ward, the Jay Ward cartoons. I just wanted to Rocky and Bullwinkle. That was the other big one for Jay Ward. Sure. Rocky and Bullwinkle, George of the Jungle, Dudley Do-Right. Okay, there you go. All right, so I'm not crazy.
Okay.
Anyway.
Now.
All right, now.
Now we can talk about Kliff Kingsbury.
Thank God. And by the way, great news for Damar Hamlin. Maybe. Someone should send some Jay Ward cartoons for Damar Hamlin. I think he would enjoy that. He's got time. He's got stuff to. On his road to recovery. He's going to need stuff to entertainment. We expect to see him back sooner or later. Great news on him. Anyway,
Yes.
I think that's important.
Not as good news on Kliff Kingsbury, for Kliff Kingsbury, I guess. Lawrence, although he's just getting paid through 2027, so that contract worked out well.
I'm about to say, you know,
don't have to move out of the house.
Exactly. I just was about to mention that famous picture where he just chilling, looking at his little screen right there. He can make a bunch more pictures like that for years to come, even after he stopped getting paid. Yeah, man, it just didn't work out here. Finished 28, 37, and 1 in his 4 seasons. There, it was supposed to be a match made in heaven. Him coming to the NFL with his pass-happy offense. You get rid of Josh Rosen, get Kyler Murray. But during the end of this, partnership or relationship or whatever, they was kind of beefing a little bit, him and Kyler. You saw it on the sidelines. You saw it, in the middle of the game, how they was communicating. So, it had to be a bad situation to where they still going to pay him to live in that beautiful-looking house right there.
That's actually Matthew Berry in his Connecticut home.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why we're running that in the Kliff Kingsbury segment, but that's fine.
Not nice pants and shoes right there.
What a disaster in Arizona. 10 months ago, they signed him to an extension through 2027. This is a weird one to me. I'll tell you why. This is a weird one to me. Because you signed this guy to an extension, and I don't know that whether you're a Kingsbury fan or not, I don't think you can hold this year against him. He was without DeAndre Hopkins for 6 weeks. As soon as he gets Hopkins back, Marquise Brown gets hurt. Zach Ertz he didn't have for the full year as well. Kyler Murray tears. I mean, there were issues before Kyler Murray tore his ACL. Yeah. But I mean, just they had a ton of injuries. That Rondell Moore didn't start the season healthy either. If you believed in Kliff Kingsbury 10 months ago, I don't understand why all of a sudden in a season in which, yes, a lot of things went wrong, but why you guys would do that. And honestly, some of the stuff that happened in the offseason around the Arizona Cardinals, like the Kyler Murray studying clause that was in the contract.
That was the start of it there.
Right, but that's the general manager. That's not Kingsbury who threw that out there. Why even put that in the contract? Yeah. You signed the guy to a $250 million contract. He's your franchise guy. What? You're just doing that to embarrass the kid, right? And whether it's true or not, whether he needs to study more or not, who knows? But you committed a ton of money to him, so you're all in on Kyler Murray. Don't make him look bad. Now,
Matthew, did your NBC contract, does it have a homework clause?
Well, obviously.
What you got to study?
Huh?
What you got to study?
I don't know. I haven't read the contract. I mean, I violate it every single day. Look, my other thing is that, and so Keim steps away as well, and so obviously they have an issue with Keim. I don't know whether I don't want to speculate there. I have some thoughts on what that is, but I won't speculate. I'll just merely say that, was he forced out? Was he, is this, who knows what's going on there? But they're starting from scratch, and this is a weird one, right? Because there are a lot of fantasy relevant players on the Arizona Cardinals, and whoever becomes the head coach of this team, this is going to be really interesting because yes, the offense was bad this year, but there were certain things that we knew that when they got in close, they would run. James Conner's rushing attempts inside the goal, within in the 10-yard line over the last 2 years have been astronomical. And just the Cardinals as a running back. I mean, Kenyon Drake 3 years ago, right? So it affects, obviously, James Conner. What kind of offense are they going to run? We knew that Hopkins was getting a ton of targets. We knew they liked the slot. We knew that Rondell Moore and Zach Ertz were viable when they were out there. We talked about Greg Dortch, his emergence. So what a new coach comes in and does, what kind of offensive system. I think this is one of the big fantasy storylines for this offseason because there are so many fantasy-relevant players
and some coaches,
on the Arizona Cardinals.
Some coaches might like to run with 2 running backs.
Yeah.
So no matter how good James Conner is near the goal line, in between the 20s, they might like another guy. So it'll definitely be a big storyline in the offseason.
Yep. Our friends over at Pro Football Talk reporting that the Saints expect to hear from the Cardinals about Sean Payton. Of course, the Saints still control Sean Payton's rights. So any team that would like to interview Sean Payton would need to contact New Orleans and say, hey, we would like permission. Cardinals are expecting to hear, the Saints are expecting to hear from Arizona, hey, we'd like to talk to Sean Payton. That has not happened yet. And obviously, if he gets hired, Sean Payton gets hired anywhere, a team would have to figure out compensation to the Saints to acquire the services of Sean Payton. That offense under Sean Payton would be pretty interesting fantasy-wise.
Oh, yeah.
You guys know who the 2 favorites for Coach of the Year were about 13 months ago? It was Kliff Kingsbury and Frank Reich. And
Wow.
neither of them are employed.
And we wouldn't
by
have
their
scoffed
teams
at that
anymore.
either. We would have
Yeah.
been like, oh, that's
Cardinals-
legit.
Cardinals had the 1 seed. Like deep into the second half of last season, they were 3.5-point underdogs in the wild card round to the team, the Rams, who had ended up winning the Super Bowl. It changes quickly.
And that's what I'm
in the
saying. Like, I
NFL.
mean, again, like they just had so many injuries. I'm not a big Kingsbury fan or defender, but it does seem weird to me that the guy that you gave a huge extension to less than a year ago, you're suddenly out on after this year. Like, to me, this year isn't an indication on Kingsbury. Like, if you were already in on him, I don't know that. Anyway, whatever.
Yep.
What are you going to do?
All right, let's look at some playoff fantasy football. Let's talk about the playoff picture as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
No,
what do you got?
go. You
No,
ahead.
you go.
I was
Sorry,
just going to
didn't
say,
mean
I was going to make a joke about the Kliff Kingsbury not featuring in the playoffs, but it was a 4 out of 10 joke, so we can move past it.
Fair enough. Exactly. Our bar is 5 out of 10, Lawrence. Just so you know, if you got a joke that's less than 5 out of 10, keep it to yourself. But like middle of the pack, we're good. Just you bring
roll.
that on in. I was just going to say, so playoff fantasy football is here. There's as many different formats as there is during the regular season. There's even more during the playoffs. No one has ever truly figured out the format to go into. There are a lot of different formats. There are best ball tournaments. Underdog is one of the places where you can play those. There are full disclosure, I have a small equity stake in Underdog. But there's the FFPC, there's the NFFC, there's obviously home leagues as well. There's a lot of different areas where you can play playoff fantasy football, where in essence sometimes you draft at the beginning of the playoffs and you stop. Others that you would get to replace their players week in, week out. What we decided to do for the purposes of this show is we're going to do a couple of different things here. But we created a format for ourselves that we think is most applicable to every person out there. And more importantly, it's the one that anyone could do. Yep. So as long as you have a couple of friends, we cannot provide the friends for you. Although Lawrence is available for a fee.
For a fee.
For a fee.
Big one.
Big, yeah, exactly. Lawrence is not cheap. But he is a friend for hire. Make no mistake. But what I would say is that the format we're going to come up with, all you need is some friends and like an Excel spreadsheet.
Yep. And also, you don't have to draft, you don't have to set that time aside, you just pick a team. So what we have gone with is you pick a 16-player roster, you have to have one player from all 14 playoff teams, and then you can choose 2 players from 2 teams. No roster adjustments, it's just the most total points at the end of the playoffs wins. If your team gets knocked out, that's part of the game, and normal PPR scoring, which is the way that you should do it. So we'll get to our teams in a second, but I think the way to think about fantasy playoffs, it's not so much about, oh yeah, Justin Jefferson's really good at football. Right. It's thinking about the teams, how many games that they're going to play. And so this is largely shaped by which teams will progress to the Super Bowl. So let's take a look at the Super Bowl odds to reach the Super Bowl provided by our friends at BetMGM. And so I think the sweet spot in terms of teams that you're looking for seems like the Bills and the 49ers, who are they don't have the bye, so they play this week, but they're also a very good chance to reach the Super Bowl. Lawrence, is there a team, these odds, that you like to reach the Super Bowl?
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm going to go below number 3, like a couple more long shots. Like I like Tampa Bay at home. We've seen how Dallas has played recently. If you could get 2 games out of the Buccaneers, a player like Chris Godwin, he'll be valuable to you. Maybe Mike Evans, he's back to form. You get 2 games out of those guys. Travis Etienne, a player like that. Obviously, players on the Bengals. So I like those players there.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of tiers, right? Like you and I, Jay, both in terms of what we've said publicly and both in terms of our wallet, because you and I spent some time at the
terminals.
You and I spent some time at the BetMGM terminals making some Super Bowl bets on the Chiefs to win. So we both like Kansas City. I think, right, you've got Kansas City and the Eagles that are home field, but right, the Bills and the Niners are both really good teams that have a chance to make the Super Bowl with 1 extra game. I would put the Bengals in that mix as well. To me, those 5 are the teams you want to focus on the most. And right, Bills, Bengals, Niners are really interesting to me, especially because they'll all 3 have legit Super Bowl chances and they'll have the extra game. The rest of them there, you sort of go through that there. Super weird. Like I mean, I guess if Tua plays, maybe, but it's weird that the Seahawks have worse odds than the Dolphins to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
I mean, the Seahawks are bad, but so are the Dolphins. I mean, the Giants have worse odds.
Yep.
Like, I disagree with that.
I think it's more likely the Seahawks beat the 49ers than it is the Dolphins beat the Bills, to be honest, because at least you're going up against Brock Purdy, who knows what you can get in the first game. But, yeah, I think...
With Tua?
Well, we'll talk about that.
That's in a minute. So, I mean, it might be Skylar Thompson or Teddy Bridgewater for the Dolphins. We'll talk about that. But anyway, I think, but Jay, just to sort of bring it full circle, your point is correct, which is that when you're filling out your lineup, whether it is our format or any other format, in essence, the first thing you need to do is like, okay, how do I think the playoffs play out? Because it's really about maximizing games. Because two games, to your point, Lawrence, 2 games from a so-so guy. Like, we all love Tyreek Hill. But if you think you can get 2 games out of Mike Evans or Chris Godwin's, that might be better than 1 game out of Tyreek Hill, who we don't think the Dolphins are going to beat the Bills, right? You know, better than 1 game out of DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett, for example.
Yep. I think the 3 teams who are most likely to play 3 games are the Chiefs, the Eagles, and the Niners. And that's just because the Bills and Bengals, they play each other in round 2, almost certainly, if we assume that they both win their games. So it's not certainly, but that is the likely matchup.
And that might be at a neutral site, right? Or no, that wouldn't be until the championship game.
No, it's just going to be the championship game.
That would be in Buffalo.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
You're going to have to play some players that only play 1 game.
Yeah, of course.
So, you get a guy like possibly Saquon Barkley like that.
Yes.
So you look at the guy like who's gonna play 1 game, but who could have a big game in that 1 game.
Yep.
1,000%. A lot of times you're choosing, and then from our format, I guess we'll get into this at some point. We can go through the rankings here, but the idea is that you want to, you're sort of you sit through and go, okay, here's who I think has the chance at the majority of games, and then you're sort of filling out like, right, who's got the best chance at having big games, and even if they play only 1 game, ultimately, hopefully you're picking guys that have big games multiple times.
Yep. So let's jump into quarterback rankings. We can talk about some of those guys expected to have big games. Now, I think 2 things.
These are my rankings, so you and Lawrence can feel free to just rip them to shreds.
Yeah, that's fine.
Or ride my coattails.
2 things to bring up here quickly is that Lamar Jackson, there's no update on his practice status. I think he's up in the air. Probably will play, but we're not sure. And then Mike McDaniel said Tua is not yet cleared for football activities. So that is just something to be mindful of.
That is why you don't see Lamar Jackson or Tua Tagovailoa on either of these rankings. I think if I knew as of this taping, hey, they're definitely playing, I think Lamar Jackson comes in, honestly, I think he comes in at 6. Just ahead of Dak Prescott. Sure. I know that sounds insane that I would have Brock Purdy ranked, but to your point, I think Brock Purdy plays 3 games.
Yep.
I think Lamar Jackson plays 1.
Yep.
I think the Bengals easily win this game this weekend against the Ravens, which you'll be able to see on Sunday Night Football right here on NBC and Peacock. I'm a company man. So that's where he would be, and I think I would have Tua even lower, probably just ahead of Kirk Cousins. I'd have him at 10 because I think he'd play 1 game against a tough matchup on the road at Buffalo as well. So that's where I would rank those guys.
Yep. Okay, let's get into Jalen Hurts, who is one of the more, I guess he is kind of mercurial because we don't know what his health will be like. And here's Jalen Hurts talking about playing hurt against the Giants.
Pushing myself to be available, and it wasn't an easy thing. It wasn't easy. It's still not easy. But we're here. We're thankful, and we're looking forward to what's to come.
Would you say you're not really close to 100%, but you think maybe with a couple more weeks you can get close?
Good enough to win today.
By the way, that necklace that he was wearing, pretty ridiculous necklace.
Bling, bling.
No, I was going to say Pat Crane. If Pat Crane does not show up on our show wearing that next time, I'll be massively disappointed.
He could get about 10 of those.
That's what I'm saying.
He could get about 10
of them.
That's what I'm
saying, right? He's got to. He should bling out, right? He should ice up.
His $2 million
he got to get the grill too, the little diamond grill in there. Yeah,
1,000%.
That's too scary. Yeah.
We need to. Hey, Pete. I'm just talking to my producer, Pete, for a second. He's yours too, but he's more mine. Hey, Pete, can we send Lawrence to Pat's house? Just have Lawrence. We do like It's a fantasy guy for the newly rich guy. You know how they used to do Queer Eye for the straight guy?
Yeah.
Like they would do makeovers.
Sure.
That's what I want. I want Lawrence to up
Oh,
his
well,
up
if
Pat's game.
I had to do that, he got to hook me up one of them chains too. Then.
Oh yeah, done. That's easy. That's in our budget.
We can tee that up. All right, Jalen Hurts. I think that most likely Hurts will be fine. I think with an extra week off, I think he'll be better for the run, having played the Giants, knocked off some of the rust. His first week matchup is probably not going to be too scary. It's going to be Seahawks, Giants, at worst probably the Cowboys or Bucks. I think he'll be fine. He did not look good against the Giants. He made a few throws, but 20 of 35, no touchdowns, bad pick as well in the red zone, but knocking some rust off, I think it's going to be a net positive that he played last.
I do too. Obviously, a really good offensive line, dual threat ability with both the legs and the arm. I agree with you. The path to play, he's not going to have to play a tough team until, in theory, the Niners in the championship game. So
and
we do like
Philly.
Yeah, and that game will be in Philly. So we like Jalen Hurts quite a bit.
Yep. Let's talk about Brock Purdy, Lawrence, who might shock some people that he came in number 5 on your rankings, but he just keeps throwing multiple touchdowns every single game.
Yeah, and look, there's some talk about if Jimmy G's available for the NFC Championship, he should be the starter. Think about what you're saying there. If they're in the NFC Championship, that doesn't even make sense because if you're in the NFC Championship, Brock Purdy was your quarterback.
Purdy would have, at that point, Brock Purdy would have gone 8-0.
Yeah.
You're taking out a guy who's 8-0 for a guy that hasn't played in 2 months in the biggest game of the season.
Yeah, ain't no way.
And it's not like Jimmy G's Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah,
either. He's good and he's probably better than Brock Purdy. But
he's like an older, more experienced Brock Purdy.
No, I'm
dead serious. That's what he is.
Yeah, if this was the situation and Patrick Mahomes was the guy coming back, it'd be no question. Right. It don't matter how many touchdowns, none of that. But it ain't Patrick Mahomes. So if you're in the NFC Championship and you got him at 5 for good reason, he has a great potential to be playing in 3 games, 2 at the least,
And by the way, it's not like it's just like he's showing up. Look at that. Solid numbers, including almost 20 fantasy points this past weekend against the Cardinals. The numbers are going up. Since he debuted, Lawrence, since he debuted in Week 13, he's the 10th best quarterback in fantasy football. He's had multiple touchdown passes in all 6 games. You're not scared about any of these matchups. Again, you throw a 5-yard dump off to Christian McCaffrey and he takes it to the house. Yeah. That counts as a touchdown pass.
Get it how you live.
Right. Seriously, there's clearly a connection between him and Kittle. Kittle his season has really risen up, not only because of Brock Purdy, but the injury to Deebo Samuel has opened up a lot of targets and him taking sort of the middle of the field. But Ayuk's had some nice games, really good weapons, really good offensive line, really good defense that's going to get them the ball in good field position. Kyle Shanahan is the no-brainer coach of the year. He has schemed up ways to protect against what Brock Purdy does not know how to do and allow him the ability to execute, a simplified offense, and he is.
Yep. I think the scary thing as well is that all the game log, that looks great. I think it's just going to get better as well because he hasn't been playing with Deebo Samuel, who might be, along with McCaffrey, the best weapon on that offense. To have Deebo, Ayuk, CMC, George Kittle, and by the way, Trent Williams spearheading your offensive line. And also, he's played 6 games in the NFL, each game with more experience. Yeah. He should get better.
People can't forget that fact. 6 games we're talking right here.
Yeah.
Damn how good the team is. The fact that he's a 7th-round rookie doing what he's doing, you got to get props regardless.
Yep.
There's a chance we see Brock Purdy in the Super Bowl this year, which
wild.
would be the craziest thing of all time.
Yeah,
but there's a legitimate chance of that.
We could see Brock Purdy in the Super Bowl and favored as well to win. If as long as he avoids the Chiefs and the Bills, they'll be favored over the Bengals. It'd be unbelievable. Just quickly on Lamar.
By the way, what would happen if the way it works out? What if at some point, I guess this could happen, that the Buccaneers could play. Because, that was Brock Purdy's, coming out party, right? Is that he defeated Tom Brady.
Yeah, beat him again.
He beat him again. Could you imagine in the playoffs?
Let's go through
his boyhood hero.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Geno Smith, Brock Purdy, round 1 of the playoffs. Unbelievable. Let's talk about Lamar Jackson and Tua just quickly again. The gambling lines in these 2 games are very strange because they're not really real lines. Because the line Bengals-Ravens is not going to be Bengals -6.5 at close, which is what it is now. I think if Lamar plays, it probably goes to more 5. If he doesn't play, then it starts to get a bit weird for NBC.
But would you, as a betting man, would you, in that theory, say, like, I'm going to take, wait, so 6.5 you said?
6.5 right now.
Would you take right now, you know what, I'm going to go to BetMGM. I'm going to use the promo code Barry. I'm going to put down $1,000 because it's my first bet and it's risk-free. Yeah. So, and I'm going to put $1,000 on the Ravens plus 6.5 with the idea that Lamar comes back and this is a closer game. Would you do something like that?
Yeah.
Not necessarily bet the $1,000. I bet responsibly, everyone.
Let them know
better risk-free. Better risk-free.
Yeah.
I think that is a good bet because I think it's more likely Lamar plays than he doesn't. I think that you've got to sift through the reporting, but my best guess would be that he does play and that the line closes more like 5, maybe even 4.5. If he doesn't, if it's Tyler Huntley, then you look at more like 8.5, and if it's Anthony Brown, then you're talking double digits pretty easily.
If it's Anthony Brown, they ain't gonna have after that last game, it's gonna be tough to even make a line.
Exactly.
Right.
And then Tua is even more of a messy situation, I think. I mean, it seems like he might be trying to call his own number and wants to play in the game. I don't really know. You got to look through the reporting as well. But right now the line is Bills minus 10.5. I'd say if Tua plays, it's probably going to go to more like 9.5. If it's Teddy, it probably stays in this range. Then again, Skylar Thompson / Anthony Brown. Yeah, good luck. But the other thing with the Dolphins is that it's not just Tua. Like Tyreek Hill can't move. It was uncomfortable.
He was battling that ankle injury. Only 2 catches for 23 yards.
Yep. And Jalen Waddle's banged up. Armstead, Bradley Chubb, Xavier Howard, like the list goes on. They are really banged up. And fortunately, they have an easy game against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo.
Yeah, in January.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I mean, so we'll see there about Tua. But honestly, again, even if you prefer Tua to Teddy Bridgewater or Skylar Thompson, but I don't know that we'd have high expectations. No. First game back, offensive weapons are beat up on the road at Buffalo.
Yep.
Tough matchup.
Indeed. All right, let's jump into some running back rankings, headlined by the guy I suspect is going to be, at worst, the number 2 pick in fantasy next year behind Justin Jefferson, and that's Christian McCaffrey, who is number 1, and then Jerick McKinnon at number 3. Unbelievable. What a surge.
Well, you know he's going to score a touchdown.
I mean,
automatic touchdown.
Look, he actually had a great run during the playoffs last year, and the fact is that we think the Chiefs play 3 games. I've said I think the Chiefs make the Super Bowl, and so, he's the passing down back on a really good passing offense that's going to play 3 games. So he comes in at number 3. It's pretty ugly at running back there because you have guys that you just don't know how much they're going to play. Tough matchups as well. I could probably get Pacheco higher, I suppose, given the fact, but again, Pacheco really needs touchdowns to pay off. Like he's not involved in the passing game as well. It's a PPR format, and so in games that are close, right, just how much work does he get on the road to the Super Bowl if he gets there? So, Lawrence, any of these rankings strike you as good and or bad?
Like I talked about before with the quarterbacks, or when we were talking about the odds for the teams who made the Super Bowl, guys like Leonard Fournette and Travis Etienne could actually, if they could win their round 1 games, those both will be underdogs. If they could win those round 1 games, they automatically provide you a value simply by playing that second game.
Yeah, I like to look at that. Bet to throw out for you guys that I like. BetMGM are up with Super Bowl MVP, and Miles Sanders is 250 to 1 to win Super Bowl MVP. He's the starting running back on a team that loves to run the ball and is plus 170 to reach the Super Bowl. I don't think he's going to win Super Bowl MVP, but 250 to 1 is a little bit big, I think.
I would not make that bet.
Yeah, that would be tough. They didn't give it to Damian Williams that year the Chiefs won.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts is not. Jalen Hurts is not Patrick Mahomes, but I take the point.
He gonna do something Patrick Mahomes like in that game. If they win, it'll be because he.
Thank you.
You know what I'm saying? It'll be because he done.
Miles Sanders.
This is a quarterback. I mean, when was the
last? They gonna force it to the quarterback.
Right. When was the last running back that gets to say, "I'm going to Disneyland"?
Yeah.
Disney World, whatever.
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
None in recent memory that immediately comes to mind. I just
By
think
the way,
there's a chance.
dumb story. A friend of mine who's an agent. I was talking to him last year, and we were like, "Oh, you're going to be at the Super Bowl?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, maybe we should try to meet up." And I'm like, "What do you?" Well, I'm here through the game. Should we try to meet up on Monday after the game? And he's like, "Oh, I can't. I'm going to Disney World." I'm like, "How do you know you're going to Disney World on Monday?" He goes, "I rep Stafford and Burrow. I'm going either way."
And then Cooper Kupp.
Right, exactly. Well, he ended up going because he went with Stafford, Kupp, and Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
So
I'm told the last running back winner of Super Bowl MVP was Terrell Davis in Super Bowl 32. So in recent memory. So It's the Jew factor with
I think I
Miles
was
Sanders.
10 years old.
140 yards and 2 touchdowns.
You might not have
in
been
Super Bowl.
born.
I just think if the Eagles win the Super Bowl and they win the Super Bowl because they run so effectively, Jalen Hurts is going to be part of that, and it's going to be hard. I mean, it's hard to see a scenario where Miles Sanders has a Terrell Davis-like Super Bowl and Jalen Hurts does nothing on the ground.
True, but
That's what I'm saying. It's like
I would rather go Devontae Smith than Miles Sanders, to be honest. That boy be balling.
I like that too, but he's not 250 to 1.
What is he?
Yeah.
What are his odds?
I think he's more like 100 to 1. But I'm just saying that Miles Sanders is more than a 1 in 50 chance to win if the Eagles win the Super Bowl. And if you agree with that, then 250 to 1
I'll
is
sprinkle.
valid. I believe in you, Miles Sanders, even if you don't believe in yourself from preseason as a fantasy guy, and even if these guys don't believe in Super Bowl MVP. Anyway, we're going to go to break. When we come back, we're going to break down wide receivers and tight ends. Fantasy playoff.
I'm about to get on people's heads for not being able to understand what I said. And then there's videos of literally online that with subtitles that explains what I said.
People loved your Sunday night intro. Lay it out there. What did you say last night?
First swag Kazakage, leader of the hidden village of the Den.
Basically, in anime terms or nerd terms, it means president for a certain village. So that's why I said then leader of the hidden village of the Den. It's basically just my own version of Naruto.
All right, that was national treasure Jamal Williams, and we are back in the hidden village of the Den. Matthew, what do you got?
He's a closet nerd. Who knew? He's a closet nerd with
He topped Jair Alexander. He's pushed Jair Alexander into the background, beat him, knocked his team out of the playoffs, and now Jamal Williams is the best interview in the NFL, not Jair.
Just open invitation for Jamal Williams to join our show at any time.
You can actually.
I'm surprised he ain't in
that
the
guy
fantasy
should be in
football.
broadcasting.
Yeah.
I'm surprised as well.
I think we get him to replace Matthew Berry on the show next year.
I'm fine with that. Because I got news for you. You know what? I got 3 years left on my contract. If you want to Kingsbury me, I'm good with that. If you want, I will 100% lay in my big cat. Liam,
You gotta have one of them pictures too.
I will. I'll be happy to. I'll be happy to get a picture like that. I got no issue sitting in my big house while NBC pays me, and you guys sit here with Jamal Williams.
That term's gonna have a lot of legs. Gotten Kingsburied.
Yeah, Kingsbury.
Yeah. That's very good.
I would totally love to be Kingsburied.
Also,
I said this before my last contract that I signed at ESPN. I was just like, I'm going full Hainsworth, which is that's the greatest thing.
like, hey.
He signed a $100 million deal with Washington, and then immediately just stunk. Just did not try for the next. I got paid and I'm done.
Oh, my man said, "Work hard, work."
Exactly.
You worked,
Exactly. So that's what I did in my last contract with ESPN. I went full Hainsworth. Now I'm here. Now I'm here at NBC. I grinded this year.
Yeah.
Kind of a prove it year.
Yes.
But I got 3 years left on my deal. So you want to get me out for Jamal Williams? I'll Kingsbury it.
Okay. Let's talk about some guys who are not going full Hainsworth. Let's talk your wide receiver rankings,
sir.
Matthew. And it's headlined by the great Stephon Diggs, who is likely to play, certainly 2 games and likely 3 even, and then followed by Jamar Chase and A.J. Brown.
Yeah, I mean, I get obviously Chase and Diggs are 2 of the best in the NFL. Each one has a chance at playing 3 games, a legit chance. A.J. Brown comes in at 3. Since week 13, he's averaging over 110 receiving yards a game. That is best in the NFL. But it's a run-heavy offense. You could make an argument for A.J. Brown at number 1 because there's a chance they play.
Yes, sure.
They play every game. They go all the way to the Super Bowl, and he's the unquestioned number 1 guy there. Justin Jefferson is sort of a bet on him having 1 monster game and potentially 2.
Yep. He may only need 1 to justify against this Giants defense. He may only need the 1 game to put up 190 yards and 2 touchdowns, which he's not afraid to do.
But as you start getting down in the list, you start seeing there's some questions, right? I mean, again, 16-17, Kadarius Toney over Tyreek Hill. That's a tight one, right? But the fact is we think Kadarius Toney plays 3 games. We think Tyreek Hill plays 1 at less than 100%.
Yep.
And with the potential 3rd-string quarterback there,
exactly.
I would even say Kadarius Toney, man, they making an effort to get this guy more involved each week. I would have him up there closer to like in that over the Gabe Davis range. I have him in there.
Okay, interesting.
I think people might freak out about seeing Tyreek Hill there. One, he's banged up. Two, the Dolphins are plus 425 on the money line to beat the Bills. That means there's more than an 80% chance that Tyreek Hill is only playing one game and he's doing it on a bum ankle. So brilliant.
On the road with likely a bad quarterback against a very good defense.
Yep. Yeah. How are you feeling about the Bucs, Lawrence? Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, who have, I mean, you throw out the Atlanta game, that wasn't a real game, but they really came to life against the Panthers.
Yeah, again, and I'm gonna keep feeling like any Bucs player, more so Chris Godwin, if they could get that win against Dallas, which we've seen how Dallas has played recently, the Bucs could very well, Tom Brady could turn on playoff mode, and Chris Godwin has been his guy. So I think that'll be the biggest value right here.
Yep.
Look, I will tell you that they're basically pick-em games in terms of the lines. But I think, and could be dead wrong here, I think the Buccaneers beat the Cowboys. I think the Jaguars, my Swaguars, beat the Chargers. I think both Florida home teams win this weekend. And to your point, right, Tom Brady's Tom Brady. He's got a full complement. There's a difference about playoff Tom Brady. The Cowboys looked terrible. That's a game they should have. Yeah. They played against a rookie quarterback in Sam Howell, a fifth-round rookie quarterback. Maybe he went too low. But regardless, backups. They had backup running backs. They had a backup quarterback. And the Cowboys got dominated by my Commanders. And you guys know I've said this on the show many times. Mike McCarthy, in my opinion, is the most overrated coach in NFL history. Prove me wrong. Show me an example of why I'm wrong on that.
He just looking like he coached.
He's won one Super. He had Aaron Rodgers at his peak. He's now got Dak Prescott.
Yeah, he's not very
good. He is underperformed. Like,
if they lose this game, if Dallas loses this game, we're going to have to be talking about something with that. We're going to be talking about Sean Payton moving to Dallas. That's what we're going to be talking about. Everybody wants Sean Payton, though.
Right, he may want to go to Dallas. I don't know if he wants to go to Dallas. Anyway, what I will say here is that I just think that there's a chance. The Cowboys looked bad. I have no confidence in Mike McCarthy. I do have a lot of confidence in Tom Brady. The game. What is the line of the game? I think it's 1 point, right?
No, it's 2.5 at the moment.
2.5. Yeah. Okay.
Bucks 2.5-point dogs.
Yeah.
So more value on the Cowboys.
Yeah. Look, I wouldn't be shocked if the Cowboys turn it on. The Cowboys obviously have a very good defense, and the Buccaneers have been inconsistent. But all I'm going to say is that this is the Buccaneers are, depending on how you feel about the Buccaneers, or honestly how you feel about that game, is a potential area for real value in these fantasy drafts in the playoffs. Because again, if you think the Cowboys, 2 games out of CeeDee Lamb, pretty interesting, right? I mean, right? 2 games out of Tony Pollard, pretty interesting.
That'd be real good.
Yeah.
Everyone wants Sean Payton. Everyone also wants Travis Kelce, who is unsurprisingly at the top of the tight end rankings. I would say the gap between Kelce and, Kittle's really come on the past month with Purdy, but I'd say the gap between Kelce and everyone else is probably bigger than the gap between the best player at his position and any other position in the league. Mark Andrews was expected to give him a run for his money preseason. He comes in number 7 in your rankings, Matthew.
Under 10 fantasy points in 4 of his last 5 games. We don't know who his quarterback is going to be. And by the way, we saw Isaiah Likely in the last game. Come on, does he suddenly get a little bit more run in this place? I just don't know what to make of the Ravens offense other than the fact that I think they lose to the Bengals. Yep. So whatever it is, it's sort of one and done here. Dawson Knox has scored in 4 straight games. He's sort of interesting, but just given the fact is that tight end is such a bad position to begin with. And then you think about the fact that Kelce and Kittle both have the shot at playing, 3 games, maybe 4 games in Kittle's case, right? There's a chance that Kittle plays 4 games. To me, those 2 guys are priorities in your draft and any sort of, where you're picking lineups or you're picking one player per team, because the disparity at the position and because they both play for teams that we think will go far in the playoffs.
Yep. Lawrence, what do you think of Evan Engram, who comes in at number 9? Are you buying him against the Chargers?
Yeah, if I want that value, we just talked about it. We feel like the Jags could go out there and beat the Chargers. He came on strong at the end of the season here, had a career game in that same span. He didn't have a great week 18, but they was just trying to win the game or whatever. But again, guys like Evan Engram, Travis Etienne, you get this win versus the Chargers, you could just breathe a sigh of relief, because whatever points you get after that is just like you playing with house money now.
1,000%.
Yep.
I mean, we'll talk about this more on Thursday. We're not have a show tomorrow. We do have a show on Thursdays. We're going to preview the wild card weekend. Nothing about this Chargers team scares me at all.
Justin Herbert?
Nah.
Justin Herbert's
I'll
been
say
bad.
this. Look,
he's turned it on. He has moments.
Still got the same hair. I don't know. I still think Justin Herbert's a little bit scary.
You got
he hasn't played. Yeah, it hasn't really happened for him this year, but
he has not played well. He may not have Mike Williams. I mean, like the game's
good job.
It's a West Coast team traveling east for a game in Jacksonville. That's a tough place to play. Remember, that's a team that kicked the crap out of them. The Jaguars kicked the crap out of the Chargers in, I think, what is it, week 2?
Yep.
Week three of the NFL season.
Yep. No, that's going to be a fun one. That's the closest line.
No, you good. You got Everett and Ingram close to each other, which, like, if the Chargers win, I wouldn't like Everett as much as I would have liked Ingram that next week is what I was going to say.
Right, and I'll make this argument, Lawrence. I think there's a strong possibility that one game of Ingram is still better than 2 games of Everett.
Yep.
Yeah,
Everett
certainly.
Has been
Recently, definitely.
Very inconsistent, especially down the stretch.
Yep. All right, we're going to go to break. When we come back, the very well-dressed Denny Carter
maybe
rolled out of Hakkasan and is going to join us to talk about his fantasy playoff roster.
There's a picture of me, Jay, and Lawrence from an earlier Fantasy Football Happy Hour show, but I really wish it had just been a picture of whatever Denny wore when he wrote this column. If Denny had been at Hakkasan last night, he still would have worn like the sweater, like the Mr. Rogers sweater thing, the robe sweater combo that he likes to rock, along with his coffee mug. Could you see him like there's bottle service and table and dancers all around, and there's Denny like with his little coffee mug.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
sipping along to Steve Aoki.
Yeah, watching Steve Aoki go crazy, and there's like Denny just. I like the idea of then Denny going to the bottle service waitress asking for a refill of the coffee. You know,
the thought of a club waitress brewing coffee in the bag is just diabolical.
Poor Denny Carter. But I just want to say this one time,
he didn't
very
deserve
clear.
this.
We love Denny.
All right. The only thing that gets talked on this show more than Hakkasan is the great Denny Carter himself. He's here. You're wearing a robe, Denny. I'm sorry, you've copped so many strays over the course of the season. We're just, when we don't have things to talk about, we just, what can we say about Denny Carter and his robe game?
That's okay. Look, I wore what people call the robe on my Tuesday stream on the NFL and NBC YouTube channel, and I've come to accept it. You know what? If they want to call it a robe, you call it a robe. And they tease me about it. I'm okay with it. I'm not mad at all, no matter what anyone says.
Well, I appreciate that. 2 questions and 2 questions only, Denny. The first one is, have you ever actually been to Hakkasan or a Vegas nightclub of the ilk?
Great place.
I have not, and I've never even heard that word before. So.
All right. Well, that is a goal in the next year, is to get you there. And then my second question is that over the past week, our colleague Denny, you and I, our mutual colleague Pat Carrain, won $2 million in a fantasy football contest. I was just curious what you have done over the past week.
Wait, I thought I was coming on to discuss the $47 in best ball winnings that I had this year, but apparently no one wants to talk about that. I don't know why.
Oh, boy.
You're a 47-year-old. You're a 47-year. What I was trying to say, a millionaire, but like a 47.
Yeah,
I can't.
It's really hard to say. Yeah,
I don't know. I screwed that.
$47
Anyway, we're going to workshop that. Yeah. Congratulations, both you and Pat Carrain in plus money in best ball this year. Whatever. We don't need to really get into the details.
Denny, let's talk fantasy, Denny. And by fantasy, I don't mean Matthew Berry's fantasies of you at Hakkasan brewing coffee in the back. I'm talking about
with the robe
football
on.
fantasy. Can you just give us an overview, I guess, of just conceptually how you approach playoff fantasy, any kind of guiding theories that you have?
Yeah, I mean, I try to differentiate as much as I can, and try to, kind of look at the players that'll be massively used across, whether it's a big tournament or a small group, whatever it is, and try to get some differentiation. I think you'll see that in my roster. And obviously, you have to eventually take some shots on teams that are underdogs going into this thing, underdogs on Wild Card Weekend. And decide to go in on those players and benefit from them advancing a game or 2 or maybe even 3. That makes all the difference in these playoff leagues.
I would agree, and I also think just to that point, I think it's important, obviously, to know the size of the contest you're in. Right. Is it is it 15 buddies from work, or is it 5,000 people that are entering like some high stakes contest, the kind of contest that Pat Crane wins and that you do not? Like just to sort of give an example, right? It just kind of depends on what you're entering here. So, and obviously, one of the things we talked about, Denny, before we joined the show was there's just a simple exercise of like, how do I think the playoffs play out? You sort of just have to kind of do that math, go through game by game. This is what I think happens, and then you fill up your lineup accordingly. We asked you at the very top of the show, we asked everyone to fill out a roster by these rules. You had to fill out 14 players, one from each playoff team. There were 2 players that you could double up, 4 running backs, 4 wide receivers, 4 flexes, 2 QBs, a tight end, and a defense. PPR scoring, and here, Denny, is your roster. You want to take us through this? You start with Hurts and Allen at quarterback, obviously. That's what you're thinking the Super Bowl is?
Yeah. I mean, that's my thinking there. I stacked Allen with Stefon Diggs because really with Josh Allen's rushing and the lack of other reliable options in the Buffalo passing game, Stefon Diggs sees so much of the target share, so much of the air yard share, that if Josh Allen's going to go off in these coming 2, 3, 4 games, whatever it is, then Diggs is going to follow along. Diggs is also going to have blow up performances in that stretch. So I went in on that stack. I took Hurts alone without a pass catcher for Philadelphia because he can get there by himself with the rushing. So that was my approach to quarterback for this tournament.
Yeah, so Denny, I see that you doubled up on the Chiefs here, and it doesn't include Patrick Mahomes. You got Jerick McKinnon in there. What made you want to go Jerick McKinnon over some of the other running backs that was available?
Right. So, I went with McKinnon and Kelsey because the target distribution has become narrowed somewhat in the Kansas City passing offense. And obviously, as the most pass-heavy team, an offense that passes no matter what, even when they have the lead, thank goodness, to have Patrick Mahomes' 2 most trusted pass catchers, especially in the short area stuff from McKinnon and then Kelsey in the middle of the field, I think that you if you can combine those 2, there's a lot of touchdown equity to go around for Kelsey and McKinnon combined. It was hard to fade Mahomes, but I would benefit from his production with those 2, I think.
Denny, you've gone 2 tight ends in your team now. I think Travis Kelce is probably going to be the first player picked for everyone who does this, but you're on Mark Andrews as well. Is that more about confidence in Mark Andrews or just lack of wanting anything to do with any other Raven?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I mean, I know Mark Andrews has been like barely a tight end 1 over the past 6 or 8 weeks. It's been really tough for fantasy. This is assuming that the Ravens are going to have Huntley back at least, maybe even Lamar. I'm not banking on it. But I think that they were being very careful with Huntley, obviously, last week and starting Anthony Brown. Andrews is basically the Ravens' like alpha wide receiver 1. He has a 32% air yard share, if I could get nerdy for a second, which is absurd for a tight end. It leads all tight ends by a country mile. This guy will get a ton of opportunity if the Ravens are forced into a pass-heavy script against the Bengals, and I think they will be, as the Ravens are pretty heavy underdogs. I think 6.5 points right now, and I think the Ravens will be forced to pass. That's great for Andrews. I think he'll get double-digit targets in this game, and if they move on, that's great for me. If not, I'm hoping to get 1 big game from Andrews.
Yeah, I agree with you, by the way. I put Andrews in he was my choice from the Ravens, not because I wanted to use I ended up going with Kelsey at my tight end position as well. And I think as I look at the rosters here on my sheet, like all of us here at the table did, we all went Kelsey at the tight end, which makes
I went Dobbins.
Well, yeah, but you went Kelsey as your tight end.
Oh,
you went Dobbins as your 1 Ravens player.
Right,
we both also.
Oh, okay.
So the 3 of us, Jay, myself, and Denny, all went double up on tight ends. We all played Kelsey. All of us played Kelsey at our tight end. The 3 of us chose Andrews as our Raven representative. You went Dobbins as well. But that was my thought process. Not that he's a tight end, but just he's their best offensive player. Who's the guy that's most likely to score a touchdown and have a good game against the Cincinnati Bengals? Here's my roster, Denny. I don't know if it got sent to you or if you can see it. But I went Mahomes and Allen at quarterback. basically, I said, you know what? I want one quarterback, and obviously, if the Bengals make it, I'm screwed here. But my take is I want one of these two guys in the Super Bowl. I want a Super Bowl quarterback. I'm not as convinced on the Eagles as you may be as well. I went with A.J. Brown for my Philadelphia representative. So I doubled up on the Chiefs, as you did. I went Mahomes and Kelsey. You went McKinnon and Kelsey. We both, but what I did do is you talk about sort of differentiation and trying to zig where others may zag. I used the 49ers defense. I went McCaffrey and the 49ers as my team that doubled up because I think there's a good chance the Niners are the representative in the NFC and that you could get real points from the Niners throughout the playoffs and obviously McCaffrey. And I just don't think a lot of people are going to choose. Most people in these contests use the defense as kind of a throwaway, right? Denny, I know you did that with the Jags, and so I thought that might be an interesting area to sort of try to gain an advantage.
Yep.
Well, I do think, just quickly, I think the Jags have a pretty good chance to put up some points against this Chargers offense, now banged up offense. It'll be, like you mentioned, Matthew, a hostile situation environment for the Chargers. They're flying across country. We know that doesn't always work out for West Coast teams. So I do like the Jags, but I was trying so hard to get the 49ers into my lineup because that defense is elite. And if they go, 3-4 games, they're going to score a lot of points.
Yep. All right. Lawrence, let's take a look at your team quickly, and you can give us your thoughts what the toughest decisions were.
Yeah, well, the tough decision for me was I love Matthew's strategy of, getting the Niners defense in there with McCaffrey. I threw away the defense. I'm going Seahawks right here.
Yep.
But where he was talking about zigging where others were zagging, I'm the only guy that got Joe Burrow here. So I'm picking the guy, that was in the Super Bowl last year. And I'm doubling it up with his receiver. So everybody will have either, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. That's where I'm looking to win right there. I'm looking to get, a touchdown out of J.K. Dobbins, down there at the bottom. Tony Pollard, if the Cowboys could win that game, you get 2 games out of him there. So I threw away the defense in hopes that adding more playmakers will have me winning.
You go with a Hurts-Brown stack along with your Burrow, Jamar Chase stack for the quarterback and wide receivers. Having 4 flexes in this format really opened some stuff up as well. So you went Tony Pollard at flex, but you could have gone CeeDee Lamb, which is what I did at the flex for my Cowboys position as well. Dobbins is an interesting choice just because it's a PPR format, so you're really banking on Dobbins scoring there. We all went Tyreek Hill. Denny, I know you went Jalen Waddle. Is that just a concern on Hill's injury? I may swap out from Hill to Waddle later. But Denny, was that your thought process there?
Partly. But over the final month of the regular season, Jalen Waddle actually led Tyreek Hill in yards per route run, receiving yards. He nearly equaled him in air yards per target. Like, I know a bunch of nerdy stuff, but like the underlying stats say that Jalen Waddle was getting a lot of opportunity relative to what he was seeing, back in October, in November. And in 2 games against this Bills defense this season, Jalen Waddle had 7 catches for 216 yards. In week 5, he accounted for over half of the Dolphins' receiving yards. So the Dolphins see something in this Bills defense that lets them, exploit Buffalo via Waddle. I kind of bank on that in the wild card round.
Which makes total sense there, by the way. You went with the Jaguars defense. The rest of us all picked Travis Etienne as our Jaguars representative. Jay, let's take a look now at your roster, and Denny, get your reactions as well to Jay Croucher, the minister of, what did we decide you? The minister of chaos?
The merchant of chaos.
The merchant of chaos.
Now look, I'm going to keep this short because I've got the exact same team as Matthews, except I went with Kenneth Walker over Tyler Lockett. I just think that Ken Walker has a little bit more upside and the potential to, have that 100-yard game and a touchdown, Denny.
Yeah, I guess Walker, people would fade Walker because it's such an ugly matchup, right, against San Francisco in the opening round. But, he's a walking 75-yard touchdown waiting to happen. So he breaks off one of those in the wild card round and, you're golden. So I do like that from a contrarian standpoint.
Okay. Denny, thanks for coming on. We will leave it there. Thank you to you, to your robe. You can go plan your trip to Hakkasan, and we will speak to you soon.
Yes.
We're going to go to break. And we'll be back after this.
And just remember, you are only $1,909,000 and whatever, $63 worse than Pat Kerrane, whatever it is. So there you go. Appreciate you.
I definitely didn't add up, but that's fine.
Yeah, at CD Carter 13 on Twitter. Give him a follow.
Okay, let's take a look at the wild card weekend lines from our friends at BetMGM. Lawrence, what's your favorite bet on the board?
Give me the Jags, baby. It's a tight one, but give me the Jags and T-Law. Lawrence, just do it better.
Okay, my best bet on the board, Seattle Seahawks, +10. Brock Purdy's first playoff game. Niners defense hasn't been as fierce, so I'll take the Seahawks to lose, but to keep it relatively close, +10. Matthew.
Give me the Jaguars to win outright. I want the Jaguars money line right here. So I'm gonna take their Swaguars, baby. I like them.
I like it.
Give me Doug Peterson over Brandon Staley.
Yeah, that's fair.
Here's what I'm going to tell you. It is closing time, which means you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Maybe go to Hakkasan. That's still open. For Lawrence Jackson, Jake Croucher, and Denny Carter, I'm Matthew Berry. We'll see you back on Thursday. Peace out. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and Rotoworld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, okay, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from Rotoworld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.